the southeastern part of Coldhams Lane, and to the east is the junction with Brooks Road, and to the west the junction with Vinery Way. St. Philip's Primary School is located to the south of the site. The application proposes the demolition of one of the pair of semi-detached properties number 308 on Coldhams Lane to create an access to the rear, and the development will be on the garden land of number 314 Coldhams Lane. The development is 14 new 3-bedroom properties that are broken into 3 different house types. House type C is located closest to the properties on Coldhams Lane. This is a terrace of 3 properties. The bikes and bins for units 1 and 2 are located here with some parking here in the front. Bikes and bins for unit 3 are to the rear, and they're accessed through this shared passageway. All of the house types use a similar palette of materials. They're brick with zinc roofs and stone copings with timber details. I think all of them have dormers to the rear. House type B is a pair of semi-detached properties. All of these have their bike and bin storage to the rear, access through these different passageways here. Again, these have a similar palette of materials. These properties have integral garages with timber-style garage doors and timber dormers to the fronts of the properties. House type A is 2 separate terraces, 1 of 3 properties and 1 of 4 properties. Unit 8 here has their bike and bin storage to the rear, and they're accessed through this area here. The remainder of the units have cycle parking to the rear, and they're accessed from this passageway here and the end one from this passage. A shared refuse store has been introduced for these properties tucked away in the corner of the site. And again, these are quite similar to the other house types with timber details and dormers to the rear. The proposal involves the demolition of part of the pair of semi-detached properties and some minor extensions to number 306 to the rear, and some alterations windows to the side. This street view here shows this property to be demolished. While these form part of a sort of cohesive set of semi-detached properties, there are other properties nearby, such as this semi-detached, this detached property, and you can see the neighbouring cul-de-sac of Coldhams Grove here.
This is a rear view.
This is a front view from Coldhams Grove. So the CGI gives a better view. You can see where the demolished property, where that was gone, and the access was created with some extensions to the retained property here. A footway is provided here to the side, and I'll say a bit more about that later. And the properties within with parking and landscaping to the front. Boundary treatments and hard and soft landscaping details are required by condition. And just to provide an aerial view to get to a better idea, the staggered building line of house type A, the 2 pairs of house type C, house type B, and the 2 pairs of house type A running along here in 2 separate terraces. In the look, there are some trees here that mark these out between these properties and the school, which is to the south of the site. So again, these properties here have windows to the rear, and concerns have been raised by the school in terms of safeguarding issues. These properties have quite long gardens of 12 metres. There's some greenery here which provides a buffer, and these properties, as you'll see in the satellite view, are actually adjacent to a car parking area. The house type B here has obscure glazing on the side windows, and the clear windows to the rear elevation look away from the school. The playground of the school is actually in this area here. The aerial view will provide better context. So the terrace of properties with the gardens are here. As you can see, there's a kind of tree screen, and this area here is mainly car parking here with windows looking this way rather than to the side. Any side windows are obscure glazed. So the Highway Authority had objected to the original proposal on highway safety grounds. There were concerns about there only being one footway into the site and the width of this and conflict with cars and pedestrians within the site. In response to this, the applicant has revised their plans and submitted a justification. So the actual access way has increased in width by 100 mil, and the footpath has increased from 1.5 metres to, that should be 1.8 metres, that's my error. The Highway Authority has reviewed the revised plans and the applicant's technical response and is satisfied that he can remove his objection. The footway here was a concern, as there is only one footway, but having reviewed local circumstances with the nearest shopping Sainsbury's, which is to the east of the site, and there being a pedestrian access to the school, which is just this way as well, there is unlikely to be any conflict with cars in terms of pedestrian movements. There has also been some concerns about overshadowing of the school. The school is broadly to the side of the site, and there is very minimal increase to overshadowing. There is some minor overshadowing of the ends of these residential gardens here, but it's not significant enough to warrant refusal. Again, you can see just minor increase in overshadowing. There have been some amendments to the proposal since its submission, the main one being the width of this passageway here has been increased from 1.2 to 1.5 metres. This has also been revised to remove bin storage from these rears. The passage will only be used for cycle access for these units here. Bin storage is to be provided tucked away in this corner here in this shared bin storage area. There were also bikes and bin storage for Unit 2 had originally been omitted, and this has now been included in this area here. So to conclude, my recommendation is for approval subject to conditions and completion of the 106.
Thank you very much. We've got two speakers, not an objector, and a full contribution from Matthew Davis. So Matthew, would you like to say what you want?
Thank you. Actually, in this case, confusingly, we have objected. I'm sorry for that confusion. So what we have here is the application has proposed a new access on Coldhams Lane. Thank you for putting that up. That is designed to interrupt the footway, the existing footway, and give priority to motor vehicle movements instead of people walking along that footway. This is in contravention with Policy 8.4 of the 2006 local plan, which clearly states, to support walking and cycling, all development will be designed to A, give priority for these modes over cars, B, ensure maximum convenience for these modes, C, be accessible to those with impaired mobility, and D, link with the surrounding walking and cycling network. And also Policy 8.11, which states that any proposed road must be designed to give high priority to the needs of pedestrians and cyclists, including safety. As this is a residential street with a nearby school, the footway is well used, particularly by families. The case officer has written that the Highway Authority has not requested this style of junction, meaning one with pedestrian priority. However, that's not a satisfactory response. The Highway Authority is not going to request a junction that is compliant with City Policies 8.4 and 8.11 because that is outside the remit of county highways. The responsibility to uphold City Policies 2006 Local Plan 8.4 and 8.11 lie with the City Councilors on this planning committee and the officers with delegated powers. And if the City won't uphold its own local plan in these particular sections, then they are dead letter. Therefore, we object to the proposed access and recommend that a revised design is submitted, compliant with 2006 Local Plan Policies 8.4 and 8.11, or that a condition to do so is attached to the application prior to any approval. And I would actually just take a note. I saw a photograph this morning that was posted by Guide Dogs Northern Ireland, and it showed a woman with a guide dog at one of these types of junctions, and she was stuck. She was unable to cross the access point on her own because it was busy. The road was busy with cars, and she couldn't tell when it was safe. And the more that we cut out these types of access points that are not compliant with the local plan, the harder it makes for vulnerable people to walk down our footways. And I really believe that we need to defend our footways. Thank you very much.
Tim Waller.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. The planning application before you seeks to provide new housing within an existing residential area, and as officers have noted, it would not result in any unacceptable adverse impacts and it would accord with local and national policies. I believe the infill developments such as this should be welcomed due to the opportunity they provide to provide housing in sustainable locations in urban areas, reducing the need for housing in the greenbelt, and also within easy access of local facilities such as nearby supermarkets, schools and bus connections in this case. We engaged with officers in an extensive pre-application process, and the submitted application complied with the written advice received at that stage. Further comments were received from the urban design officers once the application was submitted, and further alterations were made, as you've just heard, and the proposed layout, location and size of bin and cycle storage areas with passageways, which overcame officers' objections. There have never been any objections from officers to the design of the houses. The application site is in an area with a mix of architectural styles and materials, and proposed houses would be an attractive and cohesive design using high quality materials and landscaping. As you've heard, the Highway Authority initially objected to the proposed access arrangement. It is similar to the access recently permitted in another development on Pern Road, to which they did not object. The applicant has in any case increased the width of the new footpath, as you've heard, to 1.8 metres to ensure it would accommodate passing pedestrians, prams and wheelchairs. The design of the access was discussed with officers at the pre-application stage. It was agreed at that point that only one footpath would be provided so as to protect the privacy and amenity of the residents in the retained house at number 306. The additional planting was also proposed for the same reason. The access would be lightly used by only a handful of cars, even in peak hours. There would be no change to the existing cycle lane within the road and only a very small break in the footpath. Any kind of conflict here, as you've just been hearing about, is only going to be extremely limited. This would not raise any highway safety issues, and we agree with your officers and the Highway Authority there is no sustainable reason for refusing the application in relation to access and highway matters. Also note that the proposals are entirely compliant with policy requirements for car and cycle parking and similar matters. Concerns have been expressed with regard to the effect on the school children. There will be no effect on footpaths outside the application site. Details relating to noise generated during the construction period, working hours, general site safety can be addressed by planning conditions. And the applicant is keen to work with the school to minimise any disturbance, for instance during examination periods. Am I allowed to continue?
Yes, you've got 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. There will not be any unacceptable overlooking or overshadowing of the school playground. First floor windows are actually going to be set back 15 metres, not 12 metres, which is the ground floor element, behind the existing, from the boundary, and there will be the existing tree planting which will be enhanced, and there will be no overlooking of adjacent properties. The proposal will comply with policies that benefit from the presumption in favour of sustainable development, so I therefore respectfully request that they should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now open for discussion among members. Could I ask if Mairead, you would go back to the visual that shows the entrance with the planted verge in front of 306? That one. What is the distance between that, the edge of that planted verge, and the footpath? It's the narrowest point, is it not?
Chair, I think at the narrowest point it's 4 metres.
At its narrowest point, for the highway, not for the footpath.
Yeah, for the highway.
For the highway is 4 metres. Very good. Are there any other contributions? Yes, Councillor Netzinger.
I thought the point made by the Cambridge National Campaign was extremely valid. Is it possible for us at this stage to review that condition and reorganise the junction so that pedestrians are open?
The Highway Authority hasn't raised any concerns about conflict in those terms. Their concerns were conflict within the site. Therefore, we wouldn't have any justification. It wasn't required to mitigate the development, so there would be no cost in the commission.
The point made by the cycle campaign was that this was a part of city council planning policy and not highway policy, was my understanding of it.
And did we not agree earlier today to include an informative which was directed at the Highway Authority? Sarah Dyer. No, do you want to come back on that?
Obviously we have to concentrate on what's before us. So, as far as I understand it, the wish is that we control vehicles exiting the development and give priority to people on the pavement walking to and fro or cycling across. This is a secondary access onto a primary road, so by its nature, vehicles would be slow moving and would not be, they would be obviously taking care in exiting. I can't see there being any justification for requiring any further sort of design and development to make sure that wouldn't happen.
I think it also has to be said that in many respects, where planning is unable to effectively intervene, a great deal depends on the good sense of cyclists, pedestrians, motorists, looking out for each other. I mean, you can't plan out every conceivable possibility of conflict. Councillor Blinken.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a similar point, Chair. I mean, objectors, people making representations are fully entitled to selectively quote a particular local plan policy, but we as planning committee members have to look at all the planning policies that are relevant to an application, and I would guess there are dozens of relevant application policies to this particular application. One of them, of course, is promoting the increasing residential housing units within the city, which is a major concern and a major policy plank of the council. If you didn't have an access point of some sort to this area, you wouldn't have the housing at the rear. And there's bound to be a conflict of some sort when a access is created. The issue is about the balance, isn't it?
And in my own ward, in Castle Ward, we have the famous case of Seabees Yard, which is a very comparable sort of development to this. And I must say, all of the original worries about the impact that would have on traffic and so on, in the 5 or 6 years since it was granted, I haven't seen a single reference to it from any resident. I myself believe this is a fine development and one that we should approve. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I think Matthew Danish is a good point, and it's all well to say that we all need to respect one another, but if there's a conflict between a car and a person or bicycle, then we know it's going to come off worst. So, I mean, for example, if that hedge is there, if a child is cycling along that coming towards, so going from top to bottom, they're not going to be seen by a car. And there's a lot of cyclists coming. I mean, the agent, whatever it was, said about it's extremely limited in reference to Matthew Waller talking about a blind person, I believe. But it's not extremely limited. Coldhams Lane is a very well used road and path and cycleway. There's a lot of people coming up and down that street. And so I'd be concerned about cars coming out of this junction without some sort of significant give way or a bump in the road or something to slow them down and stop them. Because, we talk about other junctions and cars coming out. This is still a junction with 14 houses in there, with potentially a lot of cars coming in and out when they're going to work, perhaps in the morning and coming back in the evening. So that is a concern, I think. I'd be keen to explore any possibility of some sort of something we can say about making that a bit safer now. And the other thing is the view on St Philip's. So I think that's a bit sensitive. Houses looking over onto a primary school at the back. Are the trees in the school site, and do they effectively screen views from the houses to the school, please?
Are there any further questions? Can you deal with those in Mairead, please?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the access ways, I said the Highway Authority hasn't raised any concerns, but if you were concerned, we could perhaps incorporate some additional visibility displays into the boundary treatment condition as with the earlier application, just to ensure that the hedge and fence are cut away if required to ensure that there is adequate visibility displays, and that could be included as an informative. In terms of the trees, there are trees both within the school site and within the rear gardens of these properties. The terrace of properties which have rear windows that face towards the school are quite a distance from the school. It is a kind of car parking area rather than a place where children would linger, that the windows look towards, and it's quite a significant distance.
That point you made about display, is that to be a condition or is that an informative? An informative.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the points seems to have been satisfactorily dealt with. I think, bearing all of this in mind, we're now in a position to make a vote. The officer recommendation is one of approval. Those who support that recommendation, please indicate. That's unanimous.